So in the future, what I'm hoping for is to find a number where the company is bringing in income, but I'm not constantly hiring people. I'm
Hmm.
getting people to do things using the way things are evolving, automation, changing the auditing, changing the implementation. And that'll allow you really to scale, because then you can have one consultant auditor doing 10 implementations at the same time,
Yeah.
because they're really using these services, these structures, these processes.
Welcome to Secure and Simple podcast. In this podcast, we demystify cybersecurity governance, compliance with various standards and regulations, and other topics that are of interest for consultants, CISOs, and other cybersecurity professionals. Hello, I'm Dejan Kosutic. I'm the CEO at Advisera and the host of Secure and Simple podcast. Today, my guest is Bevan Lane. He's the CEO of InfoSec Advisory Group and expert in ISO 27001 compliance, AI, and cloud security, and speaker at various conferences and podcasts. Now, what is interesting about Bevan is that he has grown his consultancy from zero to more than 10 employees, and now it has two offices in South Africa and in London, UK. And he has, his consultancy has clients in 5 continents. So Europe, Asia, Africa, Australia, and North America. So really a remarkable success. So in today's podcast, you learn on how to scale cybersecurity consultancy and really how to make it successful in this, I would say, very competitive market. Welcome to the show, Bevan.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it was interesting talking to you and then realizing it's nearly all continents. And I think it's 23 countries in those continents. So it's good fun to have got to that level. Yeah.
Great. This is really impressive and great to have you here. So, what inspired you really to start with this consultancy business and venture out on your own as a cybersecurity consultant? Can you take us back to these early days?
I think a lot of things is always going to be luck, timing, and sometimes getting the right person to push you. So, funny enough, I've been doing a consultancy for 20 something years,
Hmm.
but only actually really started a company when a client said to me, "Stop being a single party. You're just basically an independent contractor, and you've got so much to give. So we're going to give you a contract, but you must actually bring in people to help us with this contract, and you must train them, and you must start mentoring them." So a lot of this company thing was not me wanting to do it, me sort of being
Hmm.
forced to do it, and that is, I think, what a lot of entrepreneurs do. You get to a point where you realize, well, I actually have to now go beyond just being a single person. And that client gave me such a good contract and that I could hire 3 people to do work, 3 junior people. And actually, at the beginning, I tried with people with experience and then changed that, realizing they weren't the right people. And
Hmm.
from that point, I suddenly had, well, you've got a company now, go. You've got to now run it. You've got to go do something with it. And
Hmm.
and I think a lot of entrepreneurs have done that. They're like, oh my goodness, I've actually got to do something now because I've got staff and I've got a company. I've got to grow something.
Okay, so what you're saying is that it's not kind of have been planned to really expand your number of people. It was more like, okay, I got the contract, now I have to fulfill it, right? How do you manage this kind of a growth of people? I mean, how do you select? Because you also already said that you didn't select the right people at the beginning, but
Yeah.
how do you know actually? How do you know which people to hire?
Again, it's you learn through the process. So the first round of people we do contractors, we hire
Hmm.
people with 5 years experience in cybersecurity, and we give them into this job. And then by that, I thought, well, because they've got 5 years of cybersecurity experience, I can actually work as the CEO and grow the business and not
Hmm.
necessarily have to be managing these people because they got more than 5 years experience. However, like I said to you, so the one of the 3 then became one of our senior consultants. But I realized at the same time when I was interviewing people that I found 2 or 3 young people 20 years old, who were actually passionate about getting cybersecurity. And I found them on one of these programs where you have to try and enter a competition to get into cybersecurity. And I could see the glint in their eye, I could see the enthusiasm, the excitement, and I actually then the 2 older people and you guys are just so jaded and you're not really giving me what I needed. So I brought in the young people And our business model largely over the last 5, 6 years has been every year we now get those people who are now passionate, heavily
Mm-hmm.
involved in the business to interview people to find people like them. And one of our
Mm-hmm.
things is you can't be in cybersecurity because you want a job. You got to be in
Mm-hmm.
cybersecurity because you want to be in cybersecurity, because you have that glint, you have that, I call it a spark. I can see the spark in you where you
Mm-hmm.
show an interest, you're excited about it, and you really want to be in this industry. You don't just
Mm-hmm.
want, a job because you can't find anything else or because you've heard that people pay well in cybersecurity.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I
This is
think.
interesting. I mean, focusing on enthusiasm as the main criteria. Yeah, it's and besides this, let's say enthusiasm, do you find also some other characteristic which predicts the I would say successful hire?
It's an adaptability. You've got to, even in auditing, it's a lot more structured and formal. I still need somebody that can actually be flexible and adaptable,
Mm-hmm.
because I might say to them, well, we've got this new standard and we need you to learn it in a week and you've got an audit to do.
Mm-hmm.
Or we might need to tell people, we need help now on the implementation side because we're a relatively small company. We're as big as we want to be yet.
Mm-hmm.
So flexibility, adaptability, but people skills are critical. When I'm talking about enthusiasm, we're looking with somebody that a client can see, and they're happy to see the auditor.
Mm-hmm.
They're not terrified of the auditor. They enjoy the experience largely with most of the work we do, and they understand people and understand that I want people that can go out and build relationships with people. So
Mm-hmm.
probably the number one thing is that it's sort of the people
Mm-hmm.
skills, but the enthusiasm, the spark is almost as critical as that.
Mm-hmm. Okay, sounds good. And how do you then train these people once you hire them?
So at the beginning, it was very much a mentorship thing. So I would spend the
Mm-hmm.
first year literally taking people, and they would go on jobs with me, and they would learn how I do it, but they'd also learn what was wrong with my stuff and how they could do it better themselves. Because you get your own habits, as you can imagine, and as you've been doing this for too long, you do things in a way that maybe you're missing a few things, or you just know things automatically, and it's very flexible. So
Mm-hmm.
they would take what I taught them and make it a lot more structured,
Mm-hmm.
and build on that, and then say, well, the environments are changing. How do we go from there? So I did a lot of mentoring the first 2 years. After
Mm-hmm.
the 2-year period, then you've built a structure of people that you don't have to be mentoring all the new people coming in as much.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of people, when these youngsters come in, they do want that. They're like, well, Bevan, you've been doing this for a long time. You've got this name. We obviously want to be mentored by you. So
Mm-hmm.
you still have that as a thing, but now we've got a lot more structured courses now. So we've built
Mm-hmm.
up structured courses internally, and then also we've got access to certain companies' other training.
Mm-hmm.
So we're looking and building. So we say to guys, get the Security Plus, look at the EC Council stuff, look at ISACA, look at all the
Mm-hmm.
big guys, and then we then put them on a path in terms of training. But I've got access to a lot of courses because I'm a trainer, so then I can actually do some of that training for them, and then
Mm-hmm.
allow them to do self-study. So we get everybody who works for us to literally do probably 2 or 3 courses in their first year, and
Uh-huh.
then a lot of the internal stuff.
Okay. And in your experience, what kind of, let's say, training or mentoring shown the best effect? So, what is the most effective in this, let's say, first couple of years when these people are introduced to the job?
The most of it is the shadowing stuff. So you can take somebody through a course and then say, okay, we're going to talk about security policies, or we're going to talk about
Mm-hmm.
auditing, we're going to talk about implementations, and when they're on the course, you can try and tell them stuff and try and give them practical examples, but they're just getting the theory. So really, the biggest one is, we're going to do an implementation. Come on the implementation with me. I'll show you how you don't do anything for the first month or two, and
Mm-hmm.
then you then build into components of it. So we do a lot of that shadowing at the beginning where they don't do much. They're just there as an extra party. But then obviously we're assessing them and we're seeing how interested they are to get involved in. So in that first one, we're still going to give you bits of work, and we're going to then
Mm-hmm.
start to track you and see how well you do that.
Okay.
But yeah, that's probably at the end of the day, I think all consultancies really do that. A lot of consultancies might put somebody and just teach them for 3 months and don't do any work. But I
Yeah.
still think the best way is still the shadowing approach.
Uh-huh. Okay. And once you actually find a really good, let's say, consultants that work for you, are you not afraid that they will leave the company? I mean,
I think
how do
that
you keep
word
them, right?
afraid is what you can't be afraid, but you must understand that it could happen and it does happen.
Mm-hmm.
So and why am I doing this? Why are we doing this? We're doing this because we see that there's a big cybersecurity IT auditing gap in especially in the developing world,
Mm-hmm.
but everywhere in the world. So that's why I'm bringing in youngsters and training them because there's a lot of people who move between companies, but I'd rather train up people, get them to do things in a certain way. But you've got to know that some people are going to leave, and we have seen that obviously. But what you've got to do is you've got to offer them something which shows them a path, shows them a structure, shows them a strategy, shows
Mm-hmm.
them that I'm because of my age, I'm not going to be there forever. So if we can build this company, there must be opportunities for you,
Mm-hmm.
and that's where I think the people that have been around for some of them close to 4 years now have seen that and gone, yes, I can see it. I can see the growth. I can see a strategy. I can see something for me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but
Sounds
it's
interesting.
not
Yeah.
easy.
But it's always a challenge really to keep the best people. But yeah, it's okay. And you are in a position of the CEO, right? So do you still do consulting work, or are you mainly focusing on growth, or what is really your role now?
So I do very little consulting work, but I still do some. And
Mm-hmm.
what I was always trying to do was position myself in more in security strategy work or, senior virtual CISO type advisory consultancy,
Mm-hmm.
and I do training. But I haven't done any training this year as an example. So this year I've mostly done sales development,
Uh-huh.
structure, redoing, looking at our strategy, more sort of CEO work. But
Mm-hmm.
occasionally I still do consultancy, and I still think I will do, even if I get the company to 50 people, and I still will want to do some consultancy
Mm-hmm.
because it keeps you fresh, it keeps you excited, gets you involved with clients. So, but very little. How
Yeah.
much do you do consultancy, Dejan, still? Or
Not
you?
really, and I'm
Okay.
missing it.
Yeah,
You
I
know,
do
this
very little,
this
but I still do some. Yeah.
yeah, this CEO stuff is really, managing, well, whatever, finance and people and everything. I will sometimes rather be, consulting.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
you can't do
Okay.
everything yourself. That's the trick, isn't it? Really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how do you actually plan to bring your company to, let's say, 50 plus employees? So, what is the kind of the main leverage here, or the main strategy really to grow such a business?
So I shouldn't have said 50 there, but yes, I did. I don't think we will get to 50. I do think we'd rather want to use automation and
Uh huh.
change processes because there is a huge evolution in auditing and implementations right now where
Mm-hmm.
people are using software as a service tools largely or using automation,
Uh huh.
finding ways to do this cleverer. And when you're looking at the big boys like the Microsofts, for example, they're starting to come into this field and do a lot of it sort of through automation. So you
Uh huh.
realizing you as an auditor and implementer consultant need to change. So in the future, what I'm hoping for is to find a number where the company is bringing in income, but I'm not constantly hiring people. I'm
Mm-hmm.
getting people to do things using the way things are evolving, automation, changing the auditing, changing the implementation. So I don't think, and that'll allow you really to scale because then you can have one consultant auditor doing 10 implementations at the same time
Yeah.
because they're really using these services, these structures, these processes.
Okay.
And I
So.
went to a conference last week where one CISO stood up and said, my biggest concern is we are only allowed to use tier one auditors, but the
Mm-hmm.
tier one auditors are not immersing themselves into the way the automation and the AI is moving. So it was very interesting to see him say that and going, yes, we've seen that. We've got to do that. We've got to get
Yeah.
ourselves into that way of doing work.
Mm-hmm. So it's interesting. So basically, you're saying you're going to scale in terms of output, but not in terms of headcount, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, great. Interesting approach. Okay, speaking of automation, so how do you see this consulting slash audit role change because of all these softwares and AI tools and so on?
Yeah, I mean, I'm surprised all the time, so I'm not sure I know the answer to that, but I do have ideas on it. And the one thing really for me is the audit process, very onerous, spend a lot of time from the clients. Now with these new solutions, you go in and you get the evidence and you spend less time. It's a lot less
Mm-hmm.
onerous for a client by doing that. And that's why you can do a lot more audits at the same time, as an example. And the
Mm-hmm.
same for implementations. You can take a lot of it. And my biggest thing when I go against competitors is a lot of the competitors are, we're the best ISO people. We know everything. We will keep it to ourselves and only tell the client so much. And 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 when you're doing a first meeting with a client before you even win the job, the guys will say to me, "But you've told us so much. Other guys don't tell us. They keep it to themselves." And
Mm-hmm.
I'll say yes, because they've stuck in that old way where you've got your toolkit from Dejan, and you then go to the client and you then almost to go pretend that you're the only one in the world that knows so much. And I think that attitude, we blow that out the water, because you say, guys, anybody can do this. Anybody can do this if you just spend the time and you get the understanding. But we can help you with it by doing it this way, making it easier, making it less onerous on you.
Yeah.
And I do think that's really where the big change is coming in, but it's going to change constantly.
Yeah.
And if you're not going to go with that change, you're going to be extinct as a consultant. And
Yeah.
that's what I've been saying to people.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there is a huge change in the way that consultants are working. But aren't you afraid that consultants will, you as a consultant, will be out of job because of this AI thing?
Again, that afraid word, eh? If you're afraid, you shouldn't be doing this, because you've got to go with it. You got to say, guys, and the people that are not going to survive in this industry are the people who are afraid, because you got. And at some point, yes, things are going to be very different to what they are now, where the consultant does things inherently completely differently,
Mm-hmm.
but there's still a need for people. There's still a need for the quality review. There's still a need for people with experience. There's still a need for people who can evolve with where it's going to go to. So um, it's a risk, I think, when you look at your strategy of your company. You need to look at and say, well, the way we're currently doing things is not going to be done that way in the next 2 to 10 years. So it's not I'm not afraid of it. I see it as a risk. I see it as a strategy movement. Actually, and you see it as an opportunity if you're really getting this right, because you need to go that's where it's going. I've got to work like that, because if I'm not, then in 2 years' time, no client's going to come to me. They're all going to
Yeah.
go, okay, you're doing it like that. So I'm not afraid. Of course, I'm thinking, well, where's this going? And we need to understand that for the risk of the company. But if you're afraid, then you shouldn't be doing this, is the way I see it.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. And when it comes to, I mean, scaling the business and how do you find clients and how would you compare actually how you found clients when you started with your business and how you're finding clients now? So what is, in your experience, what works best?
Also changing so much, isn't it? And
Yeah.
I think the when I used to find clients in the past, it was a very limited pool. So I was working in South Africa and I knew people, and then you become known as the ISO guy or the security
Mm-hmm.
guy in that specific field, and then people then give you references. You get from there, but you're working in quite a small environment, and especially being in Cape Town, where Johannesburg is the big city in the country, so you're not even really doing much work there. So we had to then go, all right, well, guys, it doesn't really matter where I am.
Mm-hmm.
How do I get clients in 23 countries? And really, the two things are partners, the right partners anywhere in the world. Get partners who want to work with you, and you can help them grow, and they can help you grow.
Uh-huh.
And the second one is then going using LinkedIn and marketing on social media, and getting your name out there, getting your website sorted out, using those sort of things, which is all the things we've been working on considerably. And now you're on a call to Ukraine, then you're on a call to Australia, and then you're on a call to Slovakia. Those are all interesting things that you can do now. So of course you need
Hmm.
to market like that.
Hmm.
And it's been working incredibly well.
Yeah.
Last week I got 7 calls in 1 week for
Wow.
consultancy work, and that was probably a this is a record. How do I know go beyond that? But I'm not sure we get all those jobs. But that shows you that the funnel's working incredibly well, and
Hmm.
that you're getting work through the partners, through the network, through building your name as a company and
Uh-huh.
yourself.
This sounds great. And what kind of partners do you find the most, let's say, productive in these terms?
So it's going to be a combination of the guys doing compliance services, those products people. Like I said, that's why a lot of where I'm moving to the UK has been through those people, and sort of IT companies that don't necessarily have a cybersecurity wing themselves,
Hmm.
and then others that'll just be people who are people that reach out to people and look for customers through different ways. So
Hmm.
there's quite a few different types of partners we've got now, and I think all of them have a sort of a need or they see gaps in terms of compliance, and you can work with them.
Hmm. And how do you really position yourselves, and how do you, let's say, suggest this partnership to, let's say, an IT company? So what do you bring to the table, and why would they accept this kind of a deal?
Because a lot of them don't have, and they've tried. Some of them will have tried a cybersecurity, and back to your point earlier, they would have gone, "We need to get into cyber," and
Uh-huh.
then they hire a pen tester, and then the pen tester gets poached, and then they lose, or they're bringing someone who's a senior
Yeah.
cybersecurity person, and that person the same thing. Either it doesn't work out, doesn't grow the company the way they wanted to, or gets poached somewhere else. So because of this constant movement and things, you can find gaps with people. Even the guys that do bring in a senior cybersecurity person, he can't do everything. It's like he becomes like
Hmm.
us. He can't do the work anymore, and he's so focused. So he needs people to help him.
Yeah.
The one that I really enjoyed was talking to a consultancy who have a lot of very senior people, and they've taken that typical model that many of us, which I tried at the beginning as well. You only have people that are trusted consultants, people with lots of experience, and they're so busy that they're now 120%, 150% busy. And then they go, well, the model works really well, but we're turning work away. So if we were rather to bring in junior people with us or to partner
Hmm.
with somebody who has younger consultants, we can give them certain work and then not turn work down. And I think those are the really clever partners. They've done really well with an established business model that are going, oh, this is a way of sort of like pivoting now. So if Bevan's hiring youngsters, enthusiastic people that we can then go, here's a job, senior person does this, junior person does this, we can actually grow both our companies. And
Hmm.
and I'm looking for more partners like that because
Yeah.
it's a clever way of actually growing our company both
Yeah.
both ways.
Certainly is. It's very interesting actually. I didn't hear many consultancies doing this. Yeah, in most cases consultancies are using, social media, these kind of things to promote. And from your experience, what is the best way to use? First of all, which kind of channels are you using, and what is really the best way to build your brand name?
So at the moment, we're really using LinkedIn dominantly,
Hmm.
and that now comes from not just me, but getting the company to do it, and all the staff to then create their own. So you can all build together. So the 10, 20 people can all start to grow together. Um, and the website has been a bit of a we just can't ever get it right. So we're redoing the whole website from scratch right
Oh.
now, and then using that as a separate mechanism. And then the rest is really then where we do the physical stuff. So
Uh-huh.
I've looked at other ones, whether we should use other mechanisms we may in the future. Facebook is something which we haven't used at all, and I prefer to use that as a person rather than as a company. But in the
Hmm.
future, we may look at it again. But we find the LinkedIn is giving us really
Uh-huh.
80-90% of what we need. I think it is a very trusted, successful
Uh-huh.
mechanism that works well.
Great. And are you using some kind of paid campaigns on LinkedIn, or simply posting on your personal profile and getting leads from there?
A little bit of campaigns, but most of it is personal profiles and company profiles. So I'll be working with companies who a guy who couldn't find a way to market, and he pivoted his marketing company into LinkedIn, and he went from nothing to 200 staff doing LinkedIn marketing, and it's really, and he also has clients all over the world because of how this has worked out. and I find it really successful to work with people like that who understand how to manage a LinkedIn marketing campaign and LinkedIn
Uh-huh.
marketing in that way. And we then hired somebody else working with another partner who can do the Google SEO and the website stuff.
Hmm.
And both these companies are really good at what they do. And the way you do LinkedIn marketing is you do enough that focuses on your core skills and your understanding of cybersecurity and all AR and all those things, and then you're putting enough personal stuff. And there's a lot of people that don't like putting personal stuff into LinkedIn, but a lot of other people that realize that if you don't, you can't really get beyond a
Yeah.
certain point. And so it's a mixture of that where you talk about you as an interesting, and because I've been doing it like that for a year, I have noticed just how many more people are reaching out to me,
Yeah.
how many more people are interested in meeting me, and people are inviting me to conferences, webinars, those sort of things. So clearly it does work. You need to, because anybody can buy from a consultancy, but actually they buy from people. People buy from people, and that's what we found in auditing and implementations. People love us because of people, because of what we give them in terms of the relationships, not just that we can get the job done very quickly.
Hmm.
So for me, it's critical. Yeah.
So presenting you as a person plus as an expert is the way to go on LinkedIn, right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And I mean, Dejan, your name has been known to me for 15 years because
Yeah.
not because of what you did in LinkedIn, because of what you built in other mechanisms. But
Hmm.
now I've seen what you're doing in LinkedIn as well. And your company has gone beyond you, but your name is
Yeah.
still such a large part of what
Yeah.
you're on.
Yeah.
So and I think you were one of the inspirations for me. Everyone knows Dejan, this could work.
Yeah, it's always. I mean, especially these kind of smaller companies, it's the name of the founder is always an important part of the brand name, right? So it's always a very strong connection, I would say, between the two.
Yeah, I mean,
So,
my first one was Kevin Mitnick. I mean, I think I
uh
met
huh,
Kevin Mitnick a couple of times, and it
uh
was
huh,
incredible for me to meet him. But I always thought, and I watched how his name really was everything about his company. And you
mm-hmm.
were working because you wanted to work with Kevin Mitnick,
Yeah.
inviting him to keynotes and listening and speaking to him. So I would say he's the name that got me thinking, well, if Kevin Mitnick does it like that, Dejan does it like that, there's something a lot more to this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, certainly. Now, looking back at your business, what were some biggest growing pains or setbacks that you encountered, and since can you share just your experience and how you handled this?
So yeah, I mean, I think you've mentioned a couple of things. Consultancy is exactly that, isn't it? Because now you hire consultants, and then you got to keep them happy. You got to give them opportunities, and then what they'll want is they'll then either go work at a client or go work at an opposition
Mm-hmm.
consultancy, and in some cases take some of your clients with them potentially. So those are things that are a very real thing for consultants. And yes, contracts are in place, but the contracts, sometimes can really only do so much.
Yeah.
So, and yeah, I think my biggest challenge really is about finding, um, because you bring in young people and you're building them up, you sometimes are doing so much yourself and doing so much across different levels because they don't have yet the capability to manage teams. They don't have yet the capability yet to go out and help you with marketing. They don't have the capability to do admin or whatever, those sort of things that you got to teach them. So that's a big challenge of it, which is why I did rely on one or two people who had more experience to help me,
Uh-huh.
but then realized that those people didn't have the capability and didn't give us what we needed.
Mm-hmm.
So then I had to step back and do a lot more of those things that I wish I, in some ways, wasn't doing. So yeah, it's and I now have, but now that it's 4 years into the business, those young people are now built up enough to be able to take more of that on, to be able to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So and I brought in people that I wanted to help us with sales and growth and help the company, and it just wasn't the right fit. So we haven't found the right people to do
Yeah.
that sort of stuff, and it's always been a challenge. So I start again every year to try and who's the right people, how do I grow with the right, can I bring in a senior person to help me, can I give one of my businesses to somebody else. All those are challenges that are constantly in your head as you're trying to grow this thing. and I
Mhm.
haven't really found the answer to most of those. But I know it's working, we're growing, and some of the people, the junior people, are starting to really step up now.
Yeah. So what you're saying is that finding the way to grow your team is basically the way to succeed in scaling the consultancy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly, giving them, growing them at the right speed. I think, you can't hire a 21-year-old and then give them a senior manager position because you
Hmm.
don't have anyone else. Um, but you can hire a 21-year-old and let them learn from you and other people for 2, 3, 4 years, and then start giving them those management.
Hmm.
And I've seen with my team being poached, one of the people was offered something where, sure, this person's very young. How would they be offered a job like that?
Hmm.
And they could, because they were shown that they had done so much already in their
Hmm.
role, that a company that was a big corporate went, well, that's amazing. We can get someone young with 3 years experience, come work for us. And you're like,
It's interesting. Yeah.
this is a
Yeah.
difficult thing to do. Yeah,
Hmm.
exactly.
So you mentioned earlier that you travel a lot, right? That you've been to all the countries, all the starting letters except O, right?
Yes.
So it's a lot. And how do you manage this balance between private life and work life? So how does this work for you?
Yeah. Excuse me. I get asked that question a lot, and a lot of. I did spend, by breaking up my life, I suppose, into sections. So when my
Uh-huh.
children were very small, um, when they were very small, I was doing a lot of travel, working for a big audit firm,
Hmm.
and I then got a contract in Central Asia of all places, and worked in the countries there, in smaller little stans, um, and made a good amount of money to come back, and then spend a lot of time at home. So then,
Hmm.
between when my children were between the age of 4 and sort of 18, that sort of time period, I was mostly at home, mostly working home,
Uh-huh.
and then traveling only intermittently, doing small amounts of traveling.
Hmm.
But I'd done a lot of traveling before then, so that I could calm it down a bit. So then, now that my children finish school,
Yeah.
I can actually then go and do it again. So that's really what I've done. So I spent a lot of time with my wife and kids in that period. And when you then have to leave afterwards, you can imagine it's a bit harder. But generally, my children have grown to an age now that they're independent largely.
Hmm.
And my wife and I, we work it out basically. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's difficult, but generally we've, because I've done so much of it, we know we can get a system that works.
Yeah, it's very important to be with your children, with your family, especially when they are younger. Yeah, yeah. It's
Yeah.
this is great that you did manage to do it in such a way. I think these are kind of big decisions in your life when you have to really not lose sight of your family, and yeah, it's something. And do you what do you actually enjoy the most at your work now?
So the one thing, just to tag onto that is really interesting, is when I was with my family for that period, I was heavily involved in other things with them. So that stuff that they were doing, and the one was, I coached my son at football for
Huh?
10 years, and that coaching of football was constant with them kids every
Mm-hmm.
weekend. So you're spending a lot of time with your family, and then my older daughter also did football too with us as well. So you know and part of why I mentioned that is because that coaching actually showed me that I could actually manage people, and I could actually work environments with and I had a very competitive streak, as you can imagine, and I learned so much from that I could then bring it back to work, and I do lean on it quite a lot. That coaching that I did for a long period of time, privately like that as well.
This must have been a very great experience, right? The coaching. These were young kids, right? If I understood
Yeah.
well. Yeah, and spending time with your own child and with these kids and actually learning on how to handle people. It's yeah, it's.
It's critical because you're handling parents, you're handling the kids, you're handling the opposition coaches, and I think one of the things I learned there, which I've been trying a lot to improve, is this not getting angry, not losing your temper, and I
Hmm.
think in all the years that I coached, I only had one incident where I got very angry with anybody, and it was a ridiculous situation, and I sat back and sat on a chair in the background and had a Energade or something, and just quietly calm myself down, thinking, no, you must never do that again. and
Yeah.
in my team working with them as well. It's something really learned. I think again I lost my temper with them once and realized it's not doesn't give you any real, it doesn't go anywhere. It's not in any way constructive. So that's probably a lot of stuff learned from that as well.
Well, it's very interesting. I mean, having this kind of an activity which is not business related actually helps you in your business, right? It grows you as a person and makes you a better business person afterwards.
I think
So
so
yeah,
too. And
it's
I've met a lot of people when I go to functions who we've had discussions about they've also coached in different things. And I could see they have coached because they've got more of an interest in the other person they're talking to.
mhm.
They're actually, really excited to meet Dejan. Or no, I'd like to interview you next time and learn more about you because that's the sort of stuff that I've learned from that. And
Yeah.
I think as I've grown older and been through a lot more of life's experiences, you actually are more that person. So do you think it all helps in that process?
Yeah, definitely, definitely. Okay, how do you see this business of, let's say, consulting or auditing evolve in the next, I don't know, 5, 10, maybe 15 years?
Yeah, I do think Um, you know, we we haven't gone into developing a product because most of our partners have got these products, and
Hmm.
and so if we ever did develop a product, it would be something that wouldn't compete with them or to do something slightly differently. And we've thought about that a few times, and it may still go there. Um, a SaaS service or something that we do ourselves, because then it takes it beyond that. And I know you've been through that journey as well. So
Yeah.
that would be something that we have looked at a few times. We might still do. If not, I think we will. But if not, we will then work with our partners and keep on adjusting what we're doing as we're saying. The AI angles work. We're working with a couple of AI companies already,
Hmm.
trying to work out how they're doing things. Um, Working with more partners that do things like that in the AR space could help us. But yes, we will definitely be adjusting our methodology constantly, and going in and getting evidence through, the way
Hmm.
that these APIs and these AI tools are getting the evidence, understanding the evidence, and then adjusting the way we interview people so that they
Hmm.
work together with the way that the structures are working. And the same for implementations, taking implementation, using a solution and saying, you've got something now that you can manage, constantly, and we can actually then, just help you with that. But adjusting how we do or everything we do really because of that.
Yeah. It's interesting. So this combination of let's say partners and technology is might be a way to go in the future, right?
Yeah. I do think everyone will go to that. Every country in the world, like I say, we're doing work with companies in Vietnam and Singapore, and you can
Hmm.
imagine, they're developers and they're people doing things in a very strong technology angle, and you've got to understand their business and work out that these guys are agile, they're quick, they're doing things in such a different way to, a massive corporate back in, Europe might be doing it, and you've got
Hmm.
to adjust your methodology and work with them to try and make it as automated as quick as possible.
Yeah, yeah. Now, when you look at your competition, are you afraid of actually staying in the business or them pushing you out?
That word again. I'm going to ban that word, Dejan. I'm not afraid of anything. Um, I've, I think largely the stuff I've been through the last couple of years has taught me not to be afraid of anything.
Hmm.
I'm not. But I know that this is a ridiculously competitive environment, and you've got to be on your toes all the time. So the way it is now I'm going to push as much as possible, probably for the next 5 years. Um, Push, drive, build this thing as much as I can, and have no fear about it, because I wake up at nights and I'm sweating because of cash flow, because of other things, and because we could lose a client. But it's not fear. It's more sort of the drive to then not lose that client,
Hmm.
not lose that deal, get cash flow sorted out. It's
Hmm.
Fear has been something that has been there in the past, but it's definitely not. So, but yeah, you just don't know, and I think you almost need to make peace with that, because you could in a year or two or five just be blown out the water by something that's changed so much.
Hmm.
You just got to go, and you got to adjust, and you got to go with it, and
Yeah.
try and do it as positively as possible. because it's crazy. We just don't know. The world is changing this quickly.
Yeah, yeah. And do you feel that you're better than competitors because of, let's say, these relationships with your partners, or because of your team, or because of, I don't know, using of these tools? So what do you feel is really distinguishing you between, you
Yeah.
know,
Why would you come to us, and why would you not come to other
yeah.
people? And it's a tough question to answer in consultancy. Again, we're not better. We're just different, but we can try and give you something which is done in a different way, and maybe the combination of cost and quality and the skills that you get and the way we do things. So it's all bringing that together. So we don't want to say I'm the cheapest, because at one point we were the cheapest because it was the only way to get you going in the market. But we're no longer the cheapest. But we're the right combination of all those sort of skills that will give you something that hopefully will really enhance your ISMS, your company, help a lot with what you're doing.
Mhm.
No one is the best, I think, and that's what I've learned
Yeah.
as well. But the combination is hopefully what works for you.
Great. Okay, so to wrap it up, what would you suggest to other consultants? What are the top things to keep in mind?
I've got a very good friend who is so much more successful than me, and she came and asked me for. But again, what is success? But she came and asked me for advice right at the beginning, and she sold her company and then sold it again, and really has made a lot of money and a lot of success, and is going out there. Um, and and I do think she asked me right at the beginning, how do you start a consultancy? And my first advice to her was, don't spend all this time developing something without money coming in. Always at the beginning have money coming in right at the beginning. And the way I did it was working at a client part time while I started my business. So I knew I had income. And I
Mhm.
probably became too reliant. And that's actually the client that pushed me out and said, grow a team, because they saw that I was too reliant on them and I needed to actually take that step and be pushed out of the bath. But that having money coming in at the beginning, and funny enough, the girl I was telling you about, she did exactly the same thing. She then started working for a customer and did
Mhm.
consultancy just to have money coming in as she grew her business. And it worked incredibly well for her. But I know other people that have just jumped in both feet and just tried to find money and bootstrapped and lent money. And so there's no right answer to this thing, but that worked well for me. Knowing that I had something keeping me there, something that I had annuity income, and then I could then start building from there. And largely, we still got that client 20 years later, which is amazing. I can't actually really think of how we have done that, but it's largely because, again, relationships. So
Mhm.
big one for me. But then, getting the right people, trusting the right people, getting them to help build it with you. All those are critical things I would recommend.
Great. Okay, great. Thank you for these insights, Bevan. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you, Dejan. It's been great talking to you as well. Yeah, and like I said, I'd like to hear your insights too sometime. It'll be great.
Absolutely, I'm all for it. Thanks again. And thank you everyone for listening or watching this podcast. And see you again in 2 weeks' time in our new episode of Secure and Simple podcast. Thanks for making it this far in today's episode of Secure and Simple podcast. Here's some useful info for consultants and other professionals who do cybersecurity governance and compliance for a living. On Advisera website, you can check out various tools that can help your business. For example, Conformia software enables you to streamline and scale ISO 27001 implementation and maintenance for your clients. White label documentation toolkits for NIS2, DORA, ISO 27001 and other ISO standards enable you to create all the required documents for your clients. Accredited lead auditor and lead implementer courses for various standards and frameworks enable you to show your expertise to potential clients. And a learning management system called Company Training Academy with numerous videos for NIS2, DORA, ISO 27001 and other frameworks enable you to organize training and awareness programs for your clients' workforce. Check out the links in the description below for more information. If you like this podcast, please give it a thumbs up. It helps us with better ranking, and I would also appreciate if you share it with your colleagues. That's it for today. Stay safe.